Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers, and I'm looking this morning at a book from Law Society Publishing. It's called the Equality Act 2010, and many of you will know of it from reading about it in the press and be aware of its history. This is the book itself. It runs to just over 300 odd pages. Half of it has actually got the Act and the appendices. And what you've got right at the beginning is an extremely useful, apart from the usual stuff right at the beginning of the work, you've got a very useful introduction which sets out the actual, right at the beginning here, they set out in summary form the various parts to the Act. As I say, you can see the Act has got a lot of detail in it. Then it's got the three main appendices and various links to the legislation itself. There's a Flickr review written by myself and my wife Elizabeth, and this is the title that we've given it. We've said it's transforming the landscape of equality laws by codification. That's exactly what it does. Now, Barrister Michael Duggan, who's the general editor, and his 7 expert colleagues have produced what we think is a fine and invaluable guide to the new Act, which of course arrived at the end of the Labour government term of office in 2010. And it has arrived just in time. There are still many legal commentators, of course, who regularly call for the codification of specific groups of laws, including substantive law areas like criminal law and the law of evidence. And here we have 4 main acts and 3 sets of regulations, 7 pieces of primary and secondary legislation, all neatly rolled into one, called the Equality Act 2010. Here, Law Society Publishing have produced a much needed guide, in our view, for the harmonisation of discrimination law, drawing together firstly the various original strands covering race, sex and disability, pregnancy and maternity. Then the second strand, as we see it, with the more recent European, if you like, in quotes, area of integration for age, gender reassignment, religion or belief, sexual orientation, and then the further developments in pregnancy and maternity to bring us completely up to date. It's got about 350 pages, just under, and the authors have set out the history from Labour's Fairness and Freedom document from their first part of their 3rd term from about 2005 to 7. The great asset of this guide is the useful summary of the Act in the introduction, which I indicated earlier, which actually gives you a very easy indication of how to look at the various parts of the legislation. In addition to that, we then move into the massive detail in the appendices, which fills the rest of the book, in fact over half of it, and then there's an index which is quite useful right at the back, which let me just show you there, you can just see it there. But as I say, the vast bulk of this is the copy of the Act and the appendices. As Duggan and his team say, the Act has a long genesis, and following long-standing procedural policy, which was to bring the Act into force by ministerial order. With a change of government, the Conservatives announced that it would not bring in a number of provisions, including what has become the controversial socio-economic duty, and, to be expected, the way in which the equal pay and positive action issues will be tackled. We wait to hear further information. Probably the only way to see whether all the provisions will be implemented will be to look at the government website, that's the Home Office website, after the public spending review, and see where they actually go ahead with their announcements. Meanwhile, what we've got here is a most comprehensive review of the Act, which will be welcomed by lawyers and observers, advisers alike, as a first detailed statement of what has been achieved by this transformation of the landscape of equality and discrimination law, which has actually codified the voluminous legislation that we had before, at least for the time being. So this guide is most timely in our view as the coalition government begins its work for the new decade on their approach to what we can only describe really as the fairness agenda issue. Anyway, thank you to all concerned for an excellent contribution, and something I'm sure we will all find of great help. Bye-bye.